All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us for Global Entrepreneurs Week. My name is Melissa Tenick, and I am a program manager here for New Mexico FAST and at different, I help with different programs at Arrowhead Center as well. We are going to be having folks joining us virtually as well as folks joining us online in person. If you're joining us virtually, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. If we're here in person, let me know if there's any questions that I can help you out with. But today we are going to have a pretty casual conversation about the benefits of the SBIR and STTR program. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on what the programs are and how they can overall help your small business. So the purpose of this presentation is going to be to become familiar with SBIR, STTR programs, to become familiar with the process, and then also to learn about resources we have at Arrowhead, as well as across the state of New Mexico. I recognize some of the folks here and I recognize some of the names. So some of this information might be old, you've already heard it, but it's always nice to be familiar with the assistance we can offer you. Awesome. So let's talk about the SBIR and STTR programs. The Small Business Innovation Research Program, the SBIR, and the Small Business Technology Transfer Program, or the STTR program, are both federal programs to help startups and small businesses transform their high-risk, high-impact technologies into marketable products and services that solve problems for our nations and our federal agencies. All of the federal agencies, they have their own goals, but the general goals for the SBIR, STTR programs are to meet federal R&D needs by providing money to small businesses, is to increase the private sector commercialization of innovations derived from federal R&D funding, to stimulate technological innovation, to foster and encourage participation in innovation and entrepreneurship by disadvantaged persons, and then to also foster technology transfer between small businesses and research institutions through the STTR program. These programs are awesome, but I always like to tell folks the eligibility for these programs. A lot of people, when they hear free money, non-dilutive funding, they get really excited, but it is really important to actually make sure you're eligible before you put in all of that work and time into putting your proposal together. So to be eligible for the SBIR, STTR programs, you need to be a for-profit small business, more than 50% owned and controlled by individuals who are citizens or permanent residents of the United States. Additionally, you cannot have any more than 500 employees. And the SBIR, STTR programs, their focus is on performing R&D. It is not on purchasing equipment, commercializing a technology that has already been developed, or one that is very low risk and only needs capital. What we want with SBIR is these high risk innovations that if a small business went for this idea to test the feasibility of this idea, the small business might not be able to afford to keep their doors open. So SBIR really wants to help you test these really innovative new ideas, but also support you as you're going through that testing. A few things you'll need before considering these programs: an innovative idea, an innovative concept, an idea for an innovative solution or product that we can bring to the market. An understanding of your customer. This also includes the agency. Depending on the direction that you take your proposal, you can either be applying to a granting or contracting agency. If you're applying for a contracting agency, they are going to be your customer. So really understanding who you're applying to. You need to be able to translate the scientific method to a work plan. A lot of folks, they go from academia and they see the benefits of the SBIR program. They have an innovative idea, but they write like an academic. It's really important to not only think of the intellectual merit, but also the commercialization potential for your work. And we can help you with that here at NMFAST. You need to be able to follow directions very explicitly. All of the agencies, they have administrative review. If you are over their page limit, if you aren't having the right margin spacing, a lot of times that is going to get you disqualified and reviewers won't even see your proposal. We don't want you to go through putting together 120+ hour proposal for it not even to not reach the reviewer's hands. There's also multiple registrations, which I will cover shortly. You need to start thinking about the development of a team or partnership for your innovation in your small business. One really cool thing about SBIR is that you can create your dream team. who is going to take your small business to the marketplace. And we're going to talk about that when we talk about the proposal process. You'll need to make sure that you're financially ready for this. So a lot of times you'll submit a proposal and you'll have to wait 6 months to hear back from them. Is your small business able to stay afloat for 6 months as you wait to hear back for the verdict? And once we get there, is your small business going to be able to sustain itself if the award is not granted? And then also time management skills, but any sort of award proposal granting organization is going to want you to be able to manage your time to make sure you complete everything within the period of performance, and then to report also back to them. So why SBIR or STTR? This is the one that catches folks right away. It is equity-free investment into your company. So it's non-dilutive funding from the federal government. Even though it is technically free, there is time that you put into it. Typically, for your first time writing a proposal, it'll take a little bit over 120 hours for a specific agency and a specific proposal. So a small business, it is really important. And we know small businesses, they don't have a bunch of employees on hand that can go ahead and just write these proposals for them. There is this trade-off. Are you able to commit that time to writing a nice, strong proposal to get funding in the future? It also allows you to demonstrate the feasibility of your idea. How often is a small business able to test an innovative idea and not worry about running out of money? Very rarely. So the federal government really wants to make sure that you are supported as you're testing this innovative idea, and you're going to have the financial backing. It allows you to start building a team and build your company for success. So for phase 1, and I'll talk about the phases of the SBIR program shortly, but for phase 1, a lot of the budgeting, a lot of the money should go towards building your perfect team, building your dream team. Who do you want there? What computer engineers do you need? What marketing folks do you need? Build that team for yourself so your proposal is stronger. It can help provide due diligence on follow-on funding. It allows you to map your product and value proposition to your intended customer. So your intended customer might be regular folk marketplace. It also could be the defense marketplace, depending on which agency you go with. And through the SBIR program, you can really find your niche and make sure that we're writing your proposals towards that. It reduces the need to self-fund R&D. Again, how many times is a small business going to be able to test the feasibility of a very high-risk idea? There's also IP and data rights that come along with being in the SBIR and STTR program, which I will mention shortly. And it positions you for sole source government contracts. So if you are chosen by a contracting agency, instead of having to go through the bid to become the contractor for that product, because it is your product, you become the sole source contractor. Okay, just a brief overview of the SBIR and STTR programs. They both support R&D and financing of innovative ideas. A small business gets put into a category of SBIR, STTR, depending on what their annual budget is. Organizations with an annual budget of about 100 million or greater, they take 3.2% of their research budget and they put it towards the SBIR program, which leaves a program with about $3.8 billion annually to invest into small businesses. STTR program is a sister program to the SBIR program, and it helps to facilitate cooperation for R&D efforts between small businesses and research institutions. They again focus on the commercialization potential. Organizations that are part of the STTR, they have budgets that are greater than 1 billion annually, and they put aside about 0.45% of money, which leaves about $518 million set aside per year to be awarded to small businesses. The STTR program, it has a requirement, and we'll talk about this very shortly, but it has a requirement for the small business to actually partner with a research institute. And one thing to keep in mind, the small business is always the applicant and the awardee of SBIR and STTR grants and contracts. So if you're applying the STTR route, remember, it's not going to be the research institution, it's going to be the small business. And this is a highly active program. There's always new innovations coming out and also new proposals being funded. We have about 7,000 new awards per year. Okay, there's a little bit more differences between the SBIR and STTR programming. So for our SBIR, they allow you to partner, but you don't have to. The PI needs to be primarily employed by the small business, and you may outsource or you may partner with somebody to complete up to 33% of the work during phase 1. For phase 2, it is up to 50% of the work. You don't need a formal IP requirement or IP agreement because it could be just a small business running the SBIR. 11 agencies participate in SBIR. STTR, it's a little bit different. It requires you to partner with a research institute. The PI may be employed by either the research institute or the small business. That isn't true for all of the agencies. That's true for most of them. NSF has different rules for that. And also, as I'm talking about generalities of the SBIR STTR program, it's important to remember that all of the agencies, they have little nuances that make them special and different. So just if you're ever going towards an agency, making sure that you understand those nuances, and we're here to help with that. The work requirement for STTR looks a little bit different. Instead of maximums, like with SBIR, it works in minimum. So a minimum of 40% of the work has to come from the small business, and a minimum of 30% of the work has to come from the research institute. They require you to have a formal IP agreement. Ultimately, that is to benefit the small business. You work with a larger research institute, you want to make sure that your intellectual property is protected. And then 6 agencies participate in STTR. Just looking at the allocation of work a little bit again. So with SBIR, we have the small business. They can do 100% of the work, or they can subcontract up to 33%. If you look at STTR, the research institute needs to do 30% of the work, and this is a requirement. Small business needs to complete 40, and then the remaining 30% is discretionary. All right, so I've said phase 1, phase 2, kind of this like gated program. So I want to give you a little bit of an overview for that. The SBIR and STTR programs, they technically have 3 phases. So starting phase 1, phase 2, and then over there to phase 3. More recently, agencies have started moving to kind of this phase 0 concept, as well as the SBA. During phase 0, that is before you submit your application. Phase 0 is getting acquainted with the SBIR program, with the needs of different agencies, and really understanding what resources are there across the state to help you, or resources are there within support organizations to help you as well. During phase 0, it's important to make sure that your idea is well developed in order for you to be able to write a 20+, 10+ page proposal on it. Through NMFAST, we do offer microgrants. The microgrants can be used, you would have to talk to one of the program managers, but with the microgrants, we can support you to put you in a better place to write a successful proposal. So there's a little bit of money to help you in the beginning during phase 0. Other support organizations also offer phase 0 help. So that's like contacting your PTAC, making sure, for example, some of the federal agencies like Department of Energy, they have a phase 0 now as well. So overall, agencies are learning that small businesses need to learn more about the program. So phase 0 is kind of learning more about the programs, getting yourself set up before you actually go into writing that full first proposal. So phase 1 is going to be the first funded portion of the SBIR STTR program. You have to complete a proposal package. Depending on the agency, you might just be a package. Some agencies require you to write a pitch. Other agencies require you to have a letter of intent. It really just depends on what direction you want to take your work in. And phase 1 is used for concept development or feasibility testing for your innovation. So you have this really cool idea in your head. You're not sure if it'll work in the real world. Let's use phase 1 to test that. Phase 1 award amounts range anywhere from 100,000 to about a little bit over 250,000, ranging from 6 to a 12-month period performance. Yes.
Under phase 1, is there a time gauge for conceptual and development? Is it gauged by time in terms of real world applicability?
So each of the agencies, they will have a different period of performance for phase 1. And at the end of that, they will evaluate what you have found, seeing if your work is feasible, and then they will think that you can submit a phase 2 award. But if, for example, you're working through phase 1 and you find something, okay, this is the direction I was going to go in, my feasibility testing has shown me this is not going to work, they allow for you to talk to the program and say, hey, during feasibility testing, this is what we found. If we get awarded phase 2, this is the direction we're going to take phase 2 in.
Follow-up?
Yeah.
Within that earlier discussed as far as paperwork goes, what is it they would like to see in terms of your project and what you feel would be ample time to test it?
I wish that they could adjust that for folks and say, hey, I have this really brand new idea. I might need a little bit of work for that further than the 6 months or blah, 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 whatever phase one is going to be. But they are very strict with their windows. So they're going to say, hey, this is our period of performance. We allow this much time. They're going to look at what you have planned for your feasibility testing, and they're going to make a decision if you're able to complete that within the time frame. Yes.
So what you just explained, if can there be a conversation with that timeline for the phase one within that 6 month period of time? Or reevaluate.
Yeah. Sometimes there is, once you get award, once you receive a phase one award, you have contact with your program manager or the contact within the agency. You can have conversations with them. You can reach out to them before you submit anything and ask about this period of performance. But typically, since it is a federal agency, their period of performances are steadfast. They're going to say, here you have 30 days. We're going to give you an answer in 30 days. The day you get your answer for some of them, you start work. And in 3 months, it's done. And whatever you have, that's it. So it really depends on the agency, but they are very steadfast on their time periods of performances. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep. And those can all be found in solicitations. Awesome. Clear. So with phase one, for that amount of money, folks that apply for the first time, they typically have about a 15% success rate. For some agencies, depending on the funding levels, that can go up or can go down. We have some agencies that are pretty small, so they do not have many awards that they give out per year. But what they have seen is folks that really take phase zero seriously, folks that take time to understand the agency that they're applying to, folks that take time to understand the SBIR process, the purpose of SBIR, this 15% success rate starts to increase. Not only that, but after you submit for the first time, they give you back comments for your proposal. What I would always recommend is look at those comments, apply those comments to the proposal you've written. How can you make it better next time you submit? Phase two is going to be a follow-up funding after phase one. So you aren't guaranteed phase two funding. You have to apply for it again. So kind of the conversation that we were having. So during phase one, you have a program manager or a topic contact. You're in contact with them, letting them know, hey, this is where I'm at. This is what I've completed. This is the direction I'm going to have to go in, or everything's going perfectly. And can we, are we liking our results? Then you start applying for phase two. Phase two is a little bit more in depth with the commercialization portion. Okay. Phase two is really focused on developing your prototype. So creating your first prototype for your innovation. Funding there can range from $500,000 to $1.5 million for about 2 years of work. So period of performance of 2 years. And then the success rate for phase two, getting awarded phase two is about 45%. Again, think about it. So we are going from a very, very large pool applying to phase one. Folks that apply to phase one are the only ones that can apply to phase two. So that pool is going to be smaller. And if you're communicating with your program manager contact, you would get an idea of how you would have to write your phase two proposal. And then depending on the agency, there is some follow-ups phase two funding. Not all agencies have that. So for example, if you're working on developing a prototype and there's just not enough time, some agencies do have that follow-up funding. That funding is not guaranteed. Again, it has to be applied to, and it's not for all agencies. And then we get to part three, or phase three, which is the point of the SBIR program, is creating commercial sales, commercialization. Phase three comes at the end of everything. So you've tested your feasibility, you've developed a prototype, and during the phase one and phase two, they're expecting you to be exploring your commercial potential. Who's the market? What market are you going to target? When you get to phase three, there's limited funding. Almost no agencies provide actual direct phase three funding. Some agencies and some Organizations, they can do like matching funding to help you with the commercialization, but general rule of thumb, it is that it's not SBIR funded, and it is up to a small business to be able to make sure they reach commercialization. All right, so I've been mentioning all of these agencies that participate in SBIR and STTR, and here's a little overview of them all. Everybody in the maroon is going to be participants in the SBIR. Up here, we have the Department of Commerce. That one's a little weird. That one has NIST and NOAA underneath it. So if you're looking for grants for NIST or for NOAA, make sure to check underneath Department of Commerce when you're looking for them. We also here in the gray, we have the STTR agencies. So there's a few less there. So all of the agencies up here, they participate in SBIR. The gray ones participate in STTR as well because their budgets are larger. With STTR, so there's always changes in the program. So for fiscal year 23, USDA is joining STTR. So it's going to be the first time there as well. But just making sure that you're staying on top of the solicitations, which with NMFAS, we look at them the moment they're released, we update all of our materials, and we give you the most up-to-date information. But just making sure to understand like what agencies would your innovation be eligible for. And as if it isn't complicated enough, and it's just going to keep getting more complicated. So there are overall SBIR, STTR program objectives, but within each of the agencies, they have their own objectives and innovation directions they'd like to go. If we start with the top one over there, we have NSF, the National Science Foundation. They support all scientific and engineering disciplines. Basically, if you have a really innovative, high-risk idea, typically go to NSF first. They fund a lot of different work. One thing that NSF does not fund is anything involving clinical trials. For clinical trials, we'll go down to HHS or NIH. HHS, we typically refer to it as NIH since NIH makes up the majority of the agencies or offices involved there. But as you go through here and you see the participating agencies, you see that they all have different areas of focus. For the agency. So for example, when you're seeing all of this, you can see, for example, DOE, see all things energy. And you're thinking, okay, I have this generator. I want to take this generator, Department of Energy, they're creating energy generators, right? But it's not good to pigeonhole yourself into one agency. You have to really think about how your innovation can be applied. How do you want to apply your innovation? Is your innovation going to be out on the battlefield with our warfighters? Do they need energy generation there too? They do. If you focus it in that way and want to apply it in that direction, DoD could be a match for you. If we are thinking of generating power while these deep sea vessels are looking at ocean currents, NOAA could be a fit for that. So just not only do you need an innovation, you also need a vision for your innovation. Where do you want your innovation to be applied? All right. And as I said, we're going to keep getting more and more complex. Not only do all of the agencies have their own missions, their own goals, within within many of the agencies, there are subcomponents or service components. So for example, Department of Defense, they have 14 service components that release their own topics, that have their own needs, and that's different than the overall Department of Defense. If we keep going further into it, Department of Homeland Security, there as well. When you think about security, security can look like many different things. Look at all of these components of these agencies and see what are their initiatives. How can my work fit into their needs? And then here we are with the Department of Health and Human Services. The reason why I say we typically refer to it as NIH is because everything that isn't in bold is part of NIH, and then the remaining three are the other components of human and health services. So NIH is really the powerhouse for delivering SBIR opportunities. Department of Commerce, that one I already mentioned, but NIST and NOAA are housed under there. Then we go to Department of Energy there as well. They have their different offices, different areas of focus. Department of Energy, they have 2 releases per year. So everybody that's in the first release might not be on the second release or vice versa. So just making sure that you're tracking, again, not only the agency, but the component or office that you're interested in. And then, for example, Department of Transportation, we as regular car drivers, truck drivers, we think of transportation on the ground. Transportation is also in the sky as well as the ocean. So transportation can look like many things. So when we always have to make sure we're not pigeonholing ourselves into this idea of transportation is only this one idea. Transportation can look like many things. Awesome. So if I didn't overwhelm you with the differences, they keep going. And we want to make sure you're not alone in this. NMFAST, this is what we do. We make sure that we're tracking the differences between the agencies. We make sure that we're writing them, we're updating our materials. We want to make it easier for you to understand what is going on. So proposal submission, the processes will vary. The requirements will vary as well. They typically will have a technical narrative portion, but then all of the additional requirements, page counts, margin sizes, that can all look different from agency to agency. The funding levels may vary, and I will show that shortly, as well as the period of performances. Some agencies release 1 solicitation per year. Others say they'll release 3, release a whole bunch more, depending on needs. If you think about contracting agencies, they have a specific problem they need solved. So they're going to release it when they need that problem solved. Communication with topic authors or program managers will vary depending on if you're going towards a granting agency or contracting agency. And again, we would have those conversations with you. You're not through this, going through this on your own. Registration requirements vary and they change often. I was just talking to Richard about how they just changed something and everybody just had to adjust to that as well. And then the funding vehicle. So if they're granting or contracting agencies, and I'll talk about that briefly. But on the NMFAST website, we have periods when phases are being released for all of the agencies, if they're SBIR, STTR, or both. And we update this regularly to make it easier for y'all to navigate. All right, as I said, everything is different. They also require different registrations. There's few registrations that all of them require. So we have the EIN, which all small businesses require. A new one for this next year is going to be the Unique Entity Identifier, or UEI. This replaces the DUNS number that was associated with small businesses before. You don't have to apply for the UEI on your own. When you log into your SAM, or System of Award Management account, if you already have one, log back in, a UEI number should be generated. If you're applying for one for the first time, a new UEI number will be generated for you. And then there's a few SBA registrations, so Small Business Administration likes to track demographics. So folks that are applying to our grants, and then the assistance that they're getting as well. But other than that, the agencies, they have specific registrations just for themselves. So DoD, they have their own innovation portal, which you need to make sure you register for and have your profile on. And then if you go from agency to agency, it's going to be different. A new thing this year for NSF, it used to be Fastlane. NSF has switched over to research.gov, so making sure your registrations on there are up to date. Submission portals, fun. They like to make things complicated for us. Most agencies, they use grants.gov. If they're not using grants.gov, they're using something that they've created for themselves. So just making sure that you are registered on those submission portals and that you know how to navigate to them. But again, we're here to help you with that. One thing again to keep in mind, NSF just switched from Fastlane to research.gov. So we will not be using Fastlane for SBIR initiatives. All right, so I've mentioned grants versus contracts pretty often and how some agencies fit into one or the other. Just give you a little bit of background on grants versus contracts. So grants are going to be less specific topics. It's going to be agencies like NSF, where they have a topic called artificial intelligence. What does that mean? Well, you look at NSF's needs, you look at the topic, and you write your proposal and innovation to fit those needs. So it's very open. You can, different innovations can fit that need. It's a flexible instrument designed to provide funds for public purpose. The PI has more freedom defining their scope of work. So what does the PI want to do? Where do they see their innovation going? They require just best efforts in research. And if you've ever received a grant from NSF or a granting agency, you know that, hey, everything went wrong. That's okay. Let's figure it out and move forward. So it's a little bit different there. And then the applicant defines the scope of work. For contracts, it's going to be highly focused topics. And you are going to be signing a binding agreement between the buyer and the seller for these goods. The buyer is going to be the Department of Defense or the contracting agency, and you are the seller. The scope of work is going to be fairly inflexible, and it's going to be set by the government or set by the agency that needs the innovation. So for there, For example, one of the most recent ones I read, they were looking for a photon detector that only works in the 200 to 300 nanometer range. Very specific. You can't change the scope of work. Department of Defense, they need this photon detector. They would like the small business to deliver on it. Also kind of questions and answers for contracting versus granting agencies. With granting agencies, you can talk to a program manager, not worry about the questions that you're telling them, being released to the public. For contracting agencies, every Q&A is going to be released. So making sure that you do not include proprietary information in there. And to look at the little distribution of agencies falling under contracting or granting agencies, we have the health and human services in both. But then granting agencies on the right side, and then contracting on the left. DoD, perfect example of a contracting agency. They have a need, they need this photon detector, fill it out for us, help us solve this problem. NSF, very great example of a granting agency. We have a topic area. What are you going to pitch to us that is going to solve a problem? And then here is a general view of the award amounts and periods of performance. So for phase one, typically in the 100 to 200 plus $1,000 range. Then for phase two, starting at about $500,000 up to 1.5. The periods of performances are right here listed for you. But then again, as you're applying for an opportunity, make sure that you read through the solicitation. I always say solicitation is the end all be all. They change things for us all the time. So we typically learn from the solicitation as well. All right, now to jump into slightly the data rights and IP protection under the SBIR and STTR programs. So small business owns and has full rights and title to the data developed under an SBIR award. For an STTR, to protect yourself, you need to negotiate and sign an IP agreement identifying the sharing of rights of data rights prior to the award. Data is protected for a minimum of 20 years, so it used to be 4 from the start of your award. And then data rights only apply if you have not protected the technology before utilizing funding. The federal government has limited use of the data. They're not going to delve into your SBIR program from 20 years ago and say, okay, let's see this data. What are we going to do with it? A lot of times it's kind of just keeping metrics on folks that are applying. And the USPTO, so the Patents and Trade Office, they have tutorials and webinars on this pretty often because it is changing. And I'm not a professional on it or an expert on it. So this is an area where I would always recommend you reach out to them. SBIR.gov also has tutorials on data rights. All right, the backbone of the program. So innovation does not necessarily mean high tech. Some low tech processes or products are also considered innovative. So if, for example, you think of a comic book, you might be like, okay, well, a comic book is not an innovative idea. They've been along for, for a while. But the way that you apply the comic book, that could be innovative. So can you apply this comic book in a way that it helps PTSD patients? So it really is, it's you looking at your innovation. Where do you want it to be applied and how do you want it to be applied? Innovation comes in all shapes and forms. So you don't need some high-tech gadget that's going to solve problems. Sometimes changes of methods could also solve problems. And then innovation can start anywhere in the product or tech idea chain. For commercialization, commercial merit is one of the founding principles of the SBIR and STTR programs. They don't define how it needs to be commercialized, just that it needs to have the potential to be. That is, again, because if you go with a contracting agency, your commercialization potential will look different than if you go with a granting agency. When you're completing your phase one proposal package, they want to see that you have an idea of where you're going to go with your commercial potential. But for phase two is really when they dive deep into it, and a nice chunk of the portion of the proposal is going to be focused on commercialization. They want to see that you have a clear path to market or strategy of how to get there and how this funding will be used to take that product to that next stage. And they will want you to your phase one and phase two. They want you to keep looking at customer discovery activities. So what pain points are you addressing? What value statement do you have, and what benefit will you bring to the public? Okay, so briefly going over the proposal writing process. Initially, I always recommend determine if you're eligible. Are you a small business? Do you have less than 500 employees? Are you for profit? Is the PI primarily employed by the small business? This can change depending on what agency you go to, but that's a nice rule of thumb. You want to make sure that you're eligible for the agency as well as the program, because again, you do not want to put in 120 plus hours of work for a proposal, not even to get into the reviewer's hands. That is not a fun time. Then hopefully, these two steps are occurring at the same time. So you're determining eligibility, but you're also developing, already have an innovative idea. So do you have an idea or technology that can respond to a specific need that an agency has? Or can you pinpoint a need that an agency hasn't even discovered? So that is also an opportunity with the SBIR and STTR programs. You don't always have to wait for the agencies to tell you what they need. If you have an innovation that you think could be perfect for Air Force, for example, there's ways that you can pitch it to them as well, and we can help you with that. Making sure you complete your registrations. These can take a long time, a few months. You would think that, everything's on a computer, it's pretty quick. No, they can take a little bit of time. So just making sure that everything is up to date and ready to go, including your SAMs, your UEI, and then your SBA registrations, and then making sure you're registered for any agency specific ones. Determine a topic fit and talk to agency. So review solicitations for agency priority problems. Some agencies, they will also list their topic contacts. So you can actually reach out to this person. Hey, you wrote this idea. This is a problem that your agency is facing. Is my work good enough to be considered as a solution? And then this is also something you don't have to go through with on your own. With NMFAST, when we go through your intake process, we talk to you about your innovation. We talk about where you want to apply that innovation. And then I rummage my brain and I try to find, okay, this agency is the best one for you. Cool. Then we go to completing or putting together your proposal package. This is going to be different depending on the agency and can vary greatly. Some agencies are switching over to more of like a PowerPoint style versus a technical narrative. So again, reach out to us and let us know who you're interested in, and we're going to help you make sure that you have everything that meets their needs. There will typically will be some sort of technical portion to the proposal. They'll ask for resumes or who your team is. They're going to see what resources you have for facilities, and then also they're going to look at your budget, just making sure that your budget matches your scope. And then additional documentations will be necessary for different agencies. And then we get down here to review. If you've ever written a proposal, the 6th time you read over it, you know the next 10 words that are coming out. You know what's going to happen there. So do not review on your own. Write your proposal, read it a few times, make sure grammatically it's fine and things like that, but then send it out to a third-party reviewer. Send it to somebody within your small business if you want, but then there's third-party reviewers like us at NMFAST. You can send us your proposal. I don't know what y'all are doing, but if you can convince me, teach me, that means you most likely can teach or convince a reviewer as well. So you're not in this bubble on your own. Do not read your proposal right before the last time. Be like, okay, it's perfect. Make sure that you're getting assistance. Also, if you send us your proposal 24 hours before it's due, everybody wants to do that. Typically, we'll not have time to get back to everybody. So making sure that we're communicating, hey, I'm planning on submitting a NIH proposal. It's due in 2 months. With a month before the submission window closes, can I come in and you read my proposal? We're more than happy to do that. We can also do it short term, short notice, but just not fun. Then when you submit, again, don't wait until last minute. Submit it at least the day before. Agencies don't care if your internet went down. They don't care if their portal went down. What they'll say is, hey, should have applied a week ago. So just making sure that you're applying before the last. Don't wait until the last second. And then you wait. So award notification can take anywhere from some of the initiatives take 30 days to hear back. Other initiatives can take 3 to 6 months. Again, that just depends on who you're applying to. Okay, so for our final section, I'm going to talk about SBIR, STTR support that NMFAST offers, as well as that other partners within the state offer. This is going to be specific for the state of New Mexico. If folks that are joining us virtually, if you are joining from another state, just making sure to look for those resources in your state. Most states now do have a FAST center or a FAST awardee, which provide overall holistic support for SBIR, STTR. right? So here we are talking about the SBA. So that's the FAST program is the Federal and State Technology Partnership Program. Here at Arrowhead, we have been awarded one for, we're entering our eighth year right now. And that's what when I'm talking about NMFAST, that's what I'm referring to. Overall, these programs, we help with outreach, we'll help with technical and business assistance, we help with review, we help with financial support through microgrants. We try to be a holistic one-stop shop. If you're confused about something, reach out to us and then we'll make sure you get the right answers. And if you want more information on FAST or to see if your state has a FAST program, you can visit that link there. For an FAST, so we offer a plethora of activities and different assistance. So we have free SBIR proposal development assistance. We also tailor needs to specific clients. So doesn't matter if you're coming from USDA, NIH, NOAA, NIST, we're going to tailor your needs during the meetings. We do offer microgrant support, so up to $2,000 to help with proposal development and or conference travel. And then we offer free workshops and engagement throughout the state at different times of the year. We do have a bunch of tools on our website up there. We have a resource site and we have different resources for all of the agencies. Anywhere from templates, quick start guides, checklists, just making sure that we're supporting you at any stage of the process. We have a monthly newsletter and agency blasts, and if there is any agencies that are open, we include that in our monthly newsletter. We have a video series that includes 100+ videos on almost anything you can think of, covering SBIR topics. We hold multi-week SBIR, STTR accelerators, and I will talk about one of them here shortly. And then in December, we have our annual SBIR, STTR Innovation Summit, and I'll give you information on that shortly as well. One thing that we have in addition to our accelerators is a self-paced learning platform. So we've integrated our SBIR, STTR curriculum on Canvas, so you could access it on your own and learn about the agencies on your own pace. The SBA has online tutorials as well. They have information there about, like I mentioned, the IP information, but they also have a whole bunch of different courses that you can use to become familiar with the program. The SBA, they also hold a monthly network call. This network call covers issues around policy outreach, trainings, and more. There's guest speakers during each of them. Guest speakers can range from program managers, topic managers, different support organizations. It's really nice. I join every month. It's really nice to hear about what other folks are doing. Also kind of seeing who your comrades are, right? Who can you lean on for support as you're going through the SBIR process? States have procurement technical assistance centers, so PTAC centers that can help businesses complete registration. So there's registration questions, or if there's any compliance questions, they can help there. States have their own, as well as New Mexico. There's also small business development centers, or SBDCs, and they provide a plethora of different services. They vary from state to state. We have one in New Mexico, and then other states have their own. And then making sure that you are that you know what the agencies are putting out, that you know when the solicitations are being released. We have a listserv, or a list of all of the listservs. If you're interested in getting one of those, send me an email after this. We can send it to you. But just making sure that if there's an agency of interest, go join their listserv. Make sure that you know everything that they're offering. All right, so some opportunities with NMFAST. We are entering the second year of our New Mexico Clean Energy Resilience and Growth Cluster that is funded through the Department of Energy, and it guides participants through the steps necessary for growth and development via a pipeline model. We focus on bringing clean energy efforts into the state of New Mexico, but we can offer assistance in a bunch of different areas. All of this assistance also overlaps with assistance you would receive during with New Mexico FAST. With Surge, we can just reach more folks. We can reach folks outside of the state. We do have an accelerator for Department of Energy starting in late November. It is a 12-week virtual program, and it provides guidance on areas such as aligning with the topic area, submitting a letter of intent, and then completing your proposal package. The goal of this accelerator is by the end of it for everybody to be submitting a proposal. one thing with the Department of Energy. So the Department of Energy, they just released their second topic. So release 2. You can find information on the topics at that link there. The Solar Energy Technologies Office and the Water Power Technologies Office have both released topics as well. And they would like help promoting those topics. So if you have solar or water technologies, there could be some matches there for you, and reach out to me after if you need help with matching. A letter of intent for the second release is due January 3rd. The Department of Energy is also offering a phase 0 to help first-time applicants navigate the SBIR process. So phase 0 gives you background on this, on DOE, and then what a successful package for DOE would look like. And in fast, so with those Canvas courses, we do have a SBIR 101 Canvas course. It gives you the background on all of the agencies on a very, very high level. And then we have a DOE focused course that focuses on all the ins and outs of the DOE program. We have our Innovation Summit on December 14th. We will be having program managers or representatives from almost all of the agencies participating in SBIR and STTR. So if you're interested and you're not sure if you have an innovation that fits the call within SBIR, it is recommended that you join us and then chat with a program manager and see what they say and what they think. It's a pretty nice opportunity where you can really get into like a Zoom call with them one-on-one, 15 minutes, talk about your idea. And then there's going to be a bunch of talks, different panels throughout the day. There's going to be reverse pitches from the federal agency. So they'll be telling you what they want. And registration is open for that right now. It is completely free and can be accessed anywhere. Okay, that was a little bit quick, but I want to make sure we were within the time period. So my name is Melissa Tenick, and here's my email if you have any questions. And if you are interested in FAST, are located within the state of New Mexico, here's the link to apply to NMFAST. If you are within another state, reach out to us and we can get you connected with your FAST center. Awesome. Any questions? Yes.
Richard and I developed something that has a direct application to DARPA.
Mhm.
And we absolutely have been unable. Do you have any way to get around that, bypass it,
Yeah.
talk to them directly?
Yeah, so the question is, some folks here in the live audience are trying to reach out to DARPA, which is one of the service components, and they are not having much luck with that. A lot of folks were confused what was going to happen with the reauthorization. So a lot of them were quiet, waiting for reauthorization information to be released. There is a program manager. I can send you their name of the DARPA Institute, and he has said the last time I met with him that he's open and meeting with people. Yes.
We don't need the information from them. There are 29 elements. They're called strategic metals that are needed by the Defense Department. They're not produced in quantity in this country. And Richard and I have discovered a way to drop out all of these, all 29. It's 100% pure metal crystals within 24 hours.
Huh.
And 90% efficiency.
Very cool.
And we think DARPA should be interested in this because they keep asking, can anyone do this? We have done it.
Yeah.
And we can't get through to tell them we have the proof that we've done it. And it's very frustrating.
Yeah, I know it definitely can be. So we're continuing the conversation on the DARPA piece. They believe they have an answer for DARPA, but DARPA is not, they have no way to contact them. DARPA is one of those agencies where you can contact them beforehand, kind of let them know what your idea is, and then hope for them to match your solicitation moving forward. It is just getting in contact with the right person. So Richard, or what is your name?
My name is
Dr. Glenn. Awesome. Yes. If y'all want to send me an email afterwards, we can reach out to our DARPA contacts and see, hey, what's going on. Del, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe DARPA will be at the Innovation Summit.
I am not 100% certain on that. Originally, they said that they were going to be interested, but then we have gone kind of Comstark on them. So I will verify that though.
Okay, sounds good. But we will, yeah, on December 14th. But yeah, send me an email and then we can see if we can see if we can connect you with our contacts in there. I met with a very excited program manager. There was like, nobody's emailing me. I want to talk to people. So I'm like, maybe we're just not reaching out to the right folks. But you know, again, this is what NMPAS does. We're here to support you. We meet with these program managers, try to get them to remember us. And so we can help you kind of make those softer introductions. But yeah, we'll keep that in mind. What's up?
For the interaction with businesses for phase 2 and STTR, in institutions, does that have to be another business, or can it be a university, or which one, or either one?
Yeah.
For partnering purposes.
Yeah.
For phase 2 and STTR.
Yeah, so for an STTR, who can be the partner organization? It has to be a research institution. So Del, can they be private businesses or does it have to be a federal?
It does not have to be a federal one, but there is so there's not really a list of research institutions that are out there. If you go into like even the SBIR.gov tutorials, they will essentially say their qualification for a research institution is any organization that is nonprofit and is set up to do their primary focus is research activities. And you can sometimes get away from the nonprofit is their primary focus is research activities. So that includes things like the national labs. There are some local and state laboratories, any of the universities. Let's go back when I say any of the universities, because things like colleges typically won't, because those are usually set up as just educational institutions rather than having a primary focus of research activities. Like NMSU is a research institution. Anybody that is a R1 or an R2 level school, Google it, would be listed or would be applicable for a research institution. So that split between you have to work with a research institution, they have to be primarily organized for research activities, and that has to be their primary focus. And if you're unclear on it, best thing to do, contact the agency that you're submitting to.
Awesome. Any other questions? And I will be around for the next half hour plus for as long as folks need me if we want to talk about ideas. And we'll keep the chat open as well for some questions. Yes.
These, the PowerPoint presentations, you could email it to us, give us a web link to it.
Yes, I will send the PowerPoint off to everybody that has registered for the event. So if you've registered through Eventbrite, you'll be getting the PowerPoint.
Thank you.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you all very much.